There exists a kind of feminine presence that does not shrink in order to be loved. A quiet sovereignty that does not beg for attention, does not barter its truth for temporary peace, and does not collapse itself to make others comfortable. What separates a queen from a woman who is merely waiting to be chosen is not what she gives. It is what she refuses to do. She refuses to abandon herself. In the next minutes, you are not being given rules to follow. You are being reminded of something you once knew before the world taught you to forget. You are being invited to notice where, without realizing it, you may have placed your crown down. Carl Jung described individuation as the lifelong process of becoming who you truly are, beneath conditioning. For many women, this path requires dismantling centuries-old programming that equates love with self-erasure, worth with compliance, and safety with silence. This is not comfortable work. It rarely feels soft. It often feels like standing alone in a storm, while an old version of you begs to return to what was familiar. But this discomfort is not punishment. It is the threshold. The first truth of queen energy is the one most people resist. A queen does not betray her inner truth to preserve external peace. Think about how many times you swallowed words that burned inside you, how often you felt something was wrong but told yourself you were overreacting, how many times you sensed a boundary being crossed and smiled anyway. That quiet self-betrayal does not look dramatic. It looks polite, it looks reasonable, it looks mature, and that is why it is so dangerous. When the maternal archetype within a woman is not integrated, it can distort into compulsive caretaking. The woman begins to believe her value lies in keeping everyone calm, smoothing every conflict, absorbing every discomfort. She becomes the emotional shock absorber of every room. This pattern is ancient. Women were taught that a loud voice is dangerous, that anger is unfeminine, that certainty is threatening, that boundaries make you difficult, so you learn to doubt your instincts, you learn to soften your needs, you learn to frame your truth as a question instead of a statement. You learn to apologize for existing too fully. Each time you did this, a tiny fracture formed inside, not visible, not dramatic, but cumulative. Your body remembers every time you silenced yourself. Your nervous system remembers every moment you chose belonging over integrity. Your soul remembers every version of you that was left behind in order to be loved. A queen understands something that changes everything. Real intimacy is not created through self-sacrifice. It is created through authenticity. You cannot be truly seen if you are constantly editing yourself. You cannot be deeply loved if you are always performing. A queen does not ask permission to exist. She does not over-explain her boundaries. She does not justify her no. She does not dilute her truth to make it more palatable. When she speaks from alignment, not from fear. When she is silent, it is a conscious choice, not a survival strategy. There is a profound difference between silence that comes from terror and silence that comes from sovereignty. Fear-based silence feels tight, heavy, constricting. Sovereign silence feels grounded, open, calm. One is collapse, the other is power. Queen energy does not chase agreement. It does not negotiate reality. It does not try to convince anyone to understand. It simply is. The question is not whether you deserve to speak your truth. The question is, when did you start believing that you didn't? That belief was learned. It was inherited. It was conditioned. And anything learned can be unlearned. A queen becomes dangerous to dysfunctional systems the moment she stops explaining herself. Not loud dangerous, not aggressive dangerous, quiet dangerous, because she is no longer available for manipulation. She no longer trades her authenticity for crumbs of approval. She no longer shapes herself to fit spaces that cannot hold her. She becomes self-referenced, This does not make her cruel, it makes her honest. She still loves, she still feels deeply, she still has compassion, but her compassion is no longer suicidal. She does not set herself on fire to keep others warm. She understands that peace built on self-erasure is not peace. It is slow, spiritual suffocation. And the moment you stop participating in that lie, a strange thing happens. Some people will call you cold, some will say you changed, some will say you became selfish. What they are actually reacting to is the loss of access. They were comfortable with the version of you that had no edges. They were comfortable with the version of you that bent. Your sovereignty disrupts that dynamic. A queen is not afraid of being misunderstood. Not because misunderstanding feels good, but because being understood at the cost of betraying herself feels worse. This is the beginning of your return, not to a fantasy version of power, not to dominance, not to control, but to inner alignment, to the version of you that does not need to collapse to be chosen, to the version of you that knows, my truth is not negotiable. My dignity is not conditional. My existence does not require consensus. You were never meant to be smaller. You were never meant to be quieter than your soul. You were never meant to disappear to make love possible. You were meant to be whole. And queens do not ask permission to be whole. Collective patterns do not live only in history books. They live in your nervous system. They live in your reflexes, in what you tolerate without realizing you are tolerating it, in what you call normal, even when it quietly drains you. A woman with queen energy begins to question these inherited scripts. She asks, is this fear actually mine? Or is it the fear of my mother, my grandmother, and every woman before me who learned that silence was safer than truth? That single question is revolutionary, because the moment you recognize that many of your instincts were shaped by survival rather than authenticity, you gain the power to choose differently. A queen does not automatically obey the programming of the past. She investigates it. She feels it. She decides what stays and what ends with her. This is how bloodline cycles break. The second principle of queen energy reveals a truth that reshapes relationships entirely. A queen never assumes responsibility for a man's emotional maturity. This pattern is one of the most common and most destructive traps women fall into. It often begins innocently. You explain why his words hurt. You explain why his behavior crossed a line. You explain basic empathy. You translate emotions he refuses to examine. You soften consequences. You excuse immaturity. You hold space for growth he has not chosen. Slowly, without noticing, you stop being a partner. You become a caretaker. Carl Jung warned about the danger of blending the maternal archetype with romantic partnership. When a woman unconsciously steps into the emotional mother role with an adult man, a toxic polarity forms. He becomes more childlike. She becomes more exhausted. Neither evolves. Many women carry an unconscious savior complex, the belief that love is something you prove through endurance, that patience will awaken him, that loyalty will transform him, that sacrifice will earn reciprocity. But this belief is not love. It is a wound trying to become purpose. Every human being must walk their own individuation path. No one can do that work for another. A queen understands this at a visceral level. She does not look at an emotionally unavailable man and think, how can I fix him? She asks, is this someone I genuinely respect as he is right now? Not his potential, not his promises, not the version of him she hopes he will become, who he is. That distinction saves years of suffering. A queen does not negotiate with red flags. She observes, she assesses, she chooses. Her energy is not unlimited. Her time is not infinite. Her heart is not a rehabilitation center. She supports partners who are already engaged in their own growth. She does not become the engine for someone else's evolution. There is a difference between mutual support and emotional labor performed alone. If you are constantly teaching, translating, explaining, and carrying the emotional weight of two people, you are not in partnership. You are in parenthood. A queen walks away from that dynamic without hatred, not in rage, not in revenge, but in clarity. She understands that love without accountability becomes self-betrayal. The third revelation moves even deeper. A queen never competes for attention, and she never proves her worth. Buried inside the collective feminine psyche is an ancient wound, the wound of invisibility. For centuries, women were taught, directly and indirectly, that their value depended on being chosen. Chosen for beauty, chosen for usefulness, chosen for obedience, chosen for how well they served others' needs. This created a deep subconscious belief: I must earn my right to exist. That belief does not disappear just because society changes. It mutates, it becomes striving, over-giving, over-performing, over-functioning. It becomes chasing validation, disguised as romance. It becomes mistaking longing for love. It becomes confusing attention with intimacy. Jung spoke of the shadow as everything we deny or repress. For many women, one of the most hidden shadows is the hunger for male validation. Not because women are shallow, not because they are weak, but because that hunger was planted there long before they had language for it. A queen does not shame this wound. She meets it, she sees it, she integrates it, and then she outgrows it. She no longer seeks to be chosen, because she has already chosen herself. This is not arrogance, it is inner solidity. She does not compete with other women. She does not measure her worth against external beauty standards. She does not contort herself into whatever version seems most desirable. She does not audition for love. Her presence speaks before her words ever do. Not because she is perfect, but because she is congruent. A queen knows her value is intrinsic. It does not increase when someone wants her. It does not decrease when someone leaves. This internal shift changes everything. She moves differently. She speaks differently. She loves differently. She allows people to reveal themselves instead of chasing their approval. She does not cling. She does not perform. She does not bargain. If someone is drawn to her, they approach. If they are not, she does not collapse. This kind of self-containment feels threatening to insecure systems. People accustomed to transactional relationships do not know how to handle someone who does not need to be validated. They may label her cold, unreachable, intimidating. But what they are actually encountering is a woman who is no longer negotiating her worth. A queen's magnetism does not come from trying harder. It comes from standing rooted in herself. She is not loud about her power. She does not advertise her standards. She simply lives them. This is what makes queen energy rare, not beauty, not status, not dominance, self-possession. It is the quiet authority of a woman who has stopped abandoning herself, a woman who has looked honestly at her wounds, her patterns, her longings, and her fears. A woman who chose consciousness over comfort, a woman who no longer asks, "Am I enough?" because she knows the answer, not as an affirmation, not as a mantra, but as lived truth. A queen is not perfect. She still feels, she still hurts, she still desires, she still grieves, but she does not trade her soul for attachment. She does not betray her inner knowing for temporary closeness. She does not shrink to fit spaces that require her to become less. Her crown is not something she wears for others to admire. It is an internal posture, a decision, a remembering. And once you remember who you are at this level, there is no going back. You do not become louder. You do not become harsher. You become clearer. And clarity is the most powerful form of love there is, not only for others, but for yourself. Competing for attention is one of the earliest ways a woman forgets who she is. Not loudly, not dramatically, not in a single obvious moment. It happens quietly. It happens the first time you notice yourself watching someone you desire give their attention to others and feeling a tightening in your chest. It happens the first time you think, "What can I change about myself so they will finally choose me?" It happens the first time you soften your boundaries, lower your standards, or mute your truth because you are afraid that if you show the full version of yourself, you will be left. This is not romance. This is abandonment of self. A woman who carries true queen energy never places herself in a position where love must be earned. She never treats affection as a prize to be won through performance. She never sees another woman as competition for what is meant to be aligned with her, because at the deepest level, she understands something that changes everything. What is meant for her does not require her to shrink. What is meant for her does not require her to beg. What is meant for her does not require her to prove. A queen does not enter rooms trying to be impressive. She enters rooms as herself, and if she is not received, she does not collapse. She leaves, not with anger, not with drama, not with speeches. She leaves with dignity. This alone separates queen consciousness from wounded feminine conditioning. Most women were never taught that their worth is inherent. They were taught, subtly and repeatedly, that value is conditional. Be beautiful enough, be agreeable enough, be sexual enough, be understanding enough, be forgiving enough, be patient enough, be quiet enough, be convenient enough. This programming sinks into the nervous system long before adulthood. So when attraction arises, it often awakens an old internal script. If I become what they want, I will be chosen. But queen energy moves from an entirely different internal truth. If someone cannot meet me as I am, they are not my match. This is not arrogance. This is clarity. There is a profound difference. Arrogance inflates the ego. Clarity stabilizes the self. A queen does not believe she is better than others. She knows she is not available for dynamics that require self-betrayal. That distinction is everything. When a woman is operating from queen energy, she does not chase interest. She does not track who viewed her story. She does not analyze response times. She does not read into mixed signals, because mixed signals are already an answer. Disinterest is already information. Inconsistency is already a no. Queen energy is calm. Enough to listen to what is being shown instead of clinging to what is being imagined. This level of self-respect feels shocking in a culture that romanticizes emotional hunger. We have been taught that longing equals love, that obsession equals chemistry, that anxiety equals passion. But what queen energy recognizes is simple and uncomfortable. Peace is the signature of alignment, not adrenaline, not uncertainty, not waiting, not hoping. Peace. A queen does not feel the need to compete because she is not sourcing her value externally. She is rooted in something older, deeper, and quieter, self-recognition. When you truly see yourself, you stop auditioning. When you truly value yourself, you stop bargaining. When you truly honor yourself, you stop negotiating your standards. This does not mean a queen never desires. It does not mean she never feels attraction. It does not mean she never hopes for connection. It means those desires exist inside of a stable foundation instead of an empty hole. She wants companionship, not completion. She desires partnership, not rescue. She welcomes love, but she does not require it to feel whole. This inner fullness changes everything about how she moves. She does not rush intimacy. She does not force closeness. She does not overextend. She observes. She feels. She allows people to reveal who they are. And then she decides, not from fear, not from scarcity, from alignment. Most women have been trained to reverse this order. They decide emotionally first. They attach quickly. They invest deeply. They imagine futures. and only later do they evaluate whether the person is actually capable of meeting them. Queen energy reverses that pattern. She evaluates first. She watches consistency. She watches effort. She watches integrity. She watches emotional availability. Only when those are present does her heart fully open. This is not coldness. This is discernment. A queen understands that her heart is not a public space. It is a sacred chamber. Access is earned through behavior, not words. Promises do not impress her. Potential does not seduce her. She is paying attention to what is happening now, not what could happen someday. Because she has learned, often through painful experience, that many people speak beautifully and live inconsistently, and she no longer confuses eloquence with character. When a woman stops competing, something extraordinary begins to happen. Her nervous system relaxes. Her energy becomes grounded. Her presence becomes heavier, slower, steadier. She no longer has the jittery, reaching, anxious vibration of someone trying to be chosen. She carries the calm gravity of someone who knows, if I am not chosen here, I will be chosen elsewhere. Or I will choose myself. Both are acceptable. This is power, quiet power, unannounced power, the kind that does not posture, the kind that does not need witnesses, the kind that does not need validation. A queen does not posture as unbothered. She is genuinely unbothered because her worth is not up for debate, not even internally. That is the part most people miss. Queen energy is not about how others see you. It is about how you see yourself when no one is watching. It is about the standard you hold in private. It is about what you tolerate in silence. It is about what you walk away from, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Because a queen understands that temporary loneliness is less painful than long-term self-abandonment. She understands that being alone with dignity is better than being partnered in disrespect. She understands that silence is better than breadcrumbs. She understands that waiting for alignment is better than forcing attachment. This is not because she lacks desire. It is because she refuses to purchase closeness at the cost of her soul. There is a moment in every woman's life when she realizes, no one is coming to crown me. No one is coming to declare my worth. No one is coming to rescue my self-esteem. And in that moment, two paths appear. One path is to continue searching for mirrors. The other is to become the mirror. Queen energy is choosing the second path. It is the moment you stop asking, am I enough? And start knowing, I am whole, not perfect, not superior, whole, integrated, grounded, alive. From that place, attraction changes, relationships change, choices change. You stop asking who wants you. You start asking who deserves access to you. You stop asking how to be chosen. You start asking whether you even want to choose them. This is the real shift, not external, internal. A queen does not chase the throne, she becomes it, and everything that is aligned either rises to meet her or falls away. Both outcomes are victories. Is a betrayal of the deepest call of your soul. It is self-abandonment disguised as loyalty. Here is one of the most tragic misunderstandings many women carry. They confuse endurance with strength. They confuse suffering with devotion. They confuse staying with love. Especially women who carry deep abandonment wounds tend to remain in corrosive bonds. They fear walking away. They fear being alone. They fear being seen as someone who gave up. But what they don't realize is this. Every day they remain where their soul is shrinking. They are the one being abandoned. Not by the other person, by themselves. You can lie next to someone every night and still be profoundly alone. You can share a life with someone and still feel unseen, unheard, and unsupported. A queen understands something most people never learn. Drama is not depth. Crying harder does not make someone more capable. Explaining better does not make someone more conscious. Waiting longer does not make someone more willing. So she does not beg, she does not stage emotional monologues, she does not plead for awareness, she observes, she feels, she recognizes when energy no longer flows both ways. She recognizes when a space has become too small for her, becoming, and then she leaves. Not in rage, not in revenge, not in bitterness. She leaves in quiet dignity, because her integrity matters more than attachment. This is one of the clearest markers of queen energy. She values alignment over connection. Let that land. There are relationships that require you to become quieter, smaller, softer, less honest, less intense, less alive. They ask you to tame your wildness, to dilute your truth, to hide your power. They only want the parts of you that are convenient, the agreeable parts, the soothing parts, the pleasing parts. A queen does not offer partial versions of herself. She is whole, or she is gone. The greatest fear many women carry is the idea of being alone. But queen consciousness holds a different truth. Conscious solitude is closer to home than any relationship that costs you your soul. Loneliness is not the same as abandonment. Loneliness is an empty room. Solitude is a sanctuary. Solitude is where you return to yourself. Solitude is where you remember who you are when no one is watching. Solitude is where your voice gets loud again. A queen chooses wholeness, even if it means walking alone, because she understands something sacred. It is better to be alone and intact than partnered and fragmented. She is not afraid of her own company. She is not afraid of silence. She is not afraid of meeting herself, because she knows the relationship she has with herself is the only one guaranteed to last. Maybe part of you is wondering, now, am I a queen? The answer is both simple and complex. You do not become a queen because someone crowns you. You do not become a queen because you perform confidence. You do not become a queen because you adopt an aesthetic. You become a queen by stopping the behaviors that betray your worth. You become a queen when you stop trading your truth for temporary peace. You become a queen when you stop parenting emotionally unavailable adults. You become a queen when you stop competing for attention. You become a queen when you stop carrying all the emotional weight alone. You become a queen when you stop staying in spaces that shrink you. Queen energy is not something you acquire. It is something you remember. It is who you were before the world taught you to fold yourself. Before you learned to adapt, before you believed love had to be earned, your inner throne has always existed. You simply forgot. Every boundary you set with calm dignity is a step back toward that throne. Every truth you speak without apologizing is a coronation. Every time you walk away from what dishonors you, you place the crown back on your own head. Again and again and again. Carl Jung spoke of individuation as becoming what you already are, in essence. For women, this often means releasing centuries of conditioning, the belief that your value is in your usefulness, the belief that being too much is dangerous, the belief that love equals self-sacrifice. Individuation is not becoming extraordinary. It is unbecoming everything that is false. A queen is not created. She is revealed when the layers fall away, when the bargains stop, when the self-betrayal ends, when you finally choose yourself, not in selfishness, not in coldness, but in reverence. This is the return, not to a role, not to a fantasy, but to your original state, whole, sovereign, unapologetic, at home in yourself. And from that place, everything that is real will recognize you. Everything that is false will fall away. That is not loss, that is initiation. Asked, and about the quiet power it takes to become who you truly are. Because here's the truth. A queen doesn't arrive by accident. She is forged. She is separated slowly into what belongs to her and what was placed on her. She learns to tell the difference between her own voice and the inherited noise. She returns to her essence, and that return is never simple. It asks for courage. It demands that you question relationships you've outgrown, relationships that feel familiar but slowly suffocate you. It forces you to break patterns that didn't start with you, but have lived through you for generations. To become sovereign, you have to face the fears that once kept you obedient. The fear of abandonment, the fear of solitude, the fear of being too much, the fear of being misunderstood. But on the other side of that fear, something precious is waiting. You, unfiltered, undecorated, powerfully true. A queen does not fear solitude because she misunderstands it. She fears it only until she realizes what it actually is. Not punishment, not exile, not failure, freedom. Solitude is the place where you stop performing and start hearing yourself again. And once she understands that, a queen stops choosing connections out of fear. She chooses connections where her integrity is celebrated, not negotiated, where her boundaries are honored, not tested, where her truth is reflected, not punished. That doesn't mean a queen is perfect. It doesn't mean she never doubts, never wavers, never feels fear. Queen energy isn't a polished facade. It's the willingness to be present with your vulnerability while still respecting your boundaries. It's the rare ability to be soft without dissolving, be strong without becoming harsh, be open without getting lost. A queen knows true strength is not the absence of vulnerability. True strength is the ability to be vulnerable without betraying yourself. She can reveal her wounds without offering her dignity as collateral. She can ask for support without surrendering her sovereignty. She can love without disappearing. This is the queen's alchemy. She turns pain into wisdom, wounds into clarity, disappointment into discernment. And if you look closely, you may realize something right now. There were moments in your life when you were already moving like a queen. Moments when you spoke your truth, even while your voice shook. Moments when you walked away, even when part of you wanted to stay. Moments when you refused to shrink just to be chosen. Those moments were not small. They live inside you. They are proof that you can return to your throne. So the question isn't whether you're capable. The question is, will you choose it? Will you stop negotiating your truth for temporary peace? Will you stop emotionally parenting grown men? Will you stop competing for visibility and instead become undeniable in your own presence? Will you stop carrying the emotional weight alone and require reciprocity? Will you leave spaces that demand your shrinking? Because every one of those decisions is a coronation. Every one of those choices is you returning to yourself. And here is the final, most liberating truth. You don't have to wait until you're healed enough. You don't have to wait until you're fearless. You don't have to wait until you're perfect. Queen energy doesn't come from grand gestures. It is built through 1,000 small acts of self-respect. A single boundary, a single honest sentence, a single courageous no, a single dignified exit. So what if you started today, not by putting on a crown, not by playing a role, but by asking one clean, powerful question? What would a woman who honors her dignity do here? What would a woman who truly loved herself choose in this moment? What would a woman who protects her essence allow, and what would she refuse? Those questions are your compass back to the throne. And if these words stirred something in you, if they touched a part of you that's been sleeping for too long, then stay connected. Subscribe for more reflections on the feminine soul, on relationships, on Jungian depth psychology, and on the quiet power it takes to become whole. Because this isn't just a video, it's a doorway, and you were never meant to live outside your own sovereignty. There is a quiet power inside you that does not need to announce itself. It does not raise its voice. It does not demand attention. It does not prove, persuade, or perform. It simply is. This is the power of the inner queen, not a fantasy, not a costume, not a role, a state of being. And if you've stayed with this message until now, it's not by accident. Something in you recognizes this language. Something ancient inside you is stirring, something that remembers. So before we close, I want to invite you into a moment of reflection. Which of these principles touched you the most? Where did you feel that quiet internal yes? Was it in the realization that you no longer abandon your truth for peace? Was it in the understanding that you are not responsible for emotionally raising grown adults? Was it in the release from competing for attention? Was it in the recognition that you deserve reciprocity? Was it in the knowing that you don't belong in spaces that require your shrinking? Notice what landed. Notice what lingered. Because whatever stayed with you is pointing to the place where you are already reclaiming your crown. Not someday, not after more healing, not after more proving, now. Reclaiming your crown does not mean becoming harder, it means becoming truer. It means choosing yourself even when no one is clapping. It means walking away even when it's lonely. It means saying no even when your voice trembles. It means honoring your inner truth even when it costs you familiarity. This is sovereignty, and sovereignty is not loud. It doesn't seek validation. It doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't require approval. It is an internal agreement. I will not betray myself. Once that agreement is made, everything begins to shift. Your standards change. Your tolerance changes. Your nervous system changes. Your energy changes. You stop chasing. You stop convincing. You stop auditioning for belonging. You begin to select. You begin to discern. You begin to move like someone who knows her presence is valuable, not because she is better, but because she is whole. And wholeness is magnetic, not in a performative way, not in a manipulative way, but in a grounded, undeniable way. You don't have to become mysterious, you become real. You don't have to withdraw in bitterness, you withdraw into clarity. You don't isolate, you become selective. This is the maturity of Queen energy. It is gentle, it is steady, it is unshakable. And here's something important. Your journey matters. Your inner shifts matter. Your quiet choices matter, even when no one sees them, even when no one understands them. Even when you can't fully articulate what's changing inside you yet. Sometimes speaking your truth out loud helps anchor it into reality. So, I'd love to hear from you. Which principle resonated most with you? Where do you see yourself beginning to step back into your power? Where are you choosing yourself in ways you didn't before? Share in the comments if you feel called, not to perform, not to impress, but to witness yourself. I read the comments, and I genuinely want to hear your truth. Because walking this path alone is heavy. Walking it together is lighter. We are returning to sovereignty. We are returning to inner authority. We are returning to ourselves. And your throne has been waiting for you this entire time. Stay connected. More reflections on feminine power, depth psychology, relationships, and inner transformation are coming. Until then, walk gently, walk honestly, walk like someone who knows who she is becoming. Your crown is not outside of you. It never was. It lives within you.